Let's move into our fourth and final main topic today. And our fourth and final main topic today, which I know is a source of great disappointment for a lot of people, comes to us from Aynsley, I believe that is. And Aynsley writes, "Hi, John. Have been a fan for a very long time." Well, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that very much. Love what you do. So, the creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender have left the live-action Netflix adaptation. DiMartino's open letter made it sound, he's one of the creators, open letter made it sound like they're leaving wasn't entirely amicable either. Well, it was over creative differences. Creative differences are never amicable. Anyway, what are your thoughts, and does this sound off any alarm bells about the Netflix adaptation for you? Keep up the great work and bring on the filthy. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, yesterday, a great disturbance was felt in the force, as if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror and then silenced. It was the fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender who, of course, have been very excited about the fact that not only is Netflix doing a live-action series of Avatar: The Last Airbender, but it was going to be showrun by the creators of the original animated. I just recently watched the original animated series. I had never seen it before. And I had only ever seen the M. Night movie. Woo! But I've always heard that the animated series is good. So a couple of months ago, I decided, you know what? I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch this thing. And I had a hell of a good time. It is a really fun, enjoyable. The first season, as most of you warned me, was a little more childish. But as they delved into the mythology of the whole world and their everything, it just so tied well together. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought it was great. So we've got this live action show coming. Now, without me putting too much into it, let's go over and see what the actual announcement was. So bear with me here, as I think this is worth reading almost ad nauseum. This is, of course, from one of the two creators, Michael Dante DiMartino, who writes, "Many of you have been asking," this was on his personal blog, "many of you have been asking me for updates about Avatar, the live-action Netflix series. I can finally tell you that I am no longer involved with the project. In June of this year, after 2 years of development work, Brian, I don't know how to pronounce Brian's last name, Koyensko, anyway, and I, they're the two guys who created Avatar, made the difficult decision to leave the project. When Brian and I signed on to the project in 2018, we were hired as executive producers and showrunners. In a joint announcement for the series, Netflix said that it was committed to honoring our vision for this retelling and to supporting us on creating this series, and we expressed how excited we were for the opportunity to be at the helm. Unfortunately, things did not go as we had hoped." He then goes on, and you guys can go and find this yourselves to read on, that basically says, look, hey, this show might still be good and everything, but basically we had creative differences. We weren't going to be able to do exactly what we wanted to do on this series. And so ultimately we made the decision to leave. And that's where it came down to, what it came down to. A lot of people, understandably, have been very concerned and somewhat upset to hear about this. I've seen a lot of people online raging out, understandably so, saying there's no point in doing this series now, cancel this thing, Netflix has screwed this up, Netflix doesn't know what they're doing, and all that kind of stuff. And I get it. I don't think it's unreasonable. I don't think it's unfounded to be upset by this. But I would also, I'm going to say something unpopular.
Shocking
that I would say something unpopular. But do me the privilege of hearing me out entirely before jumping to conclusions, all right? Do I think it is unfortunate that the guys who actually created Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated series, have departed? Yeah, I do. I listen, there's no way around it. In the world of is something positive or negative, it's negative. It's unfortunate. Now, these guys were also the executive producers on the M. Night Shyamalan live action, The Last Airbender. They claim that they never took any of their ideas. M. Night says otherwise. Whatever. I'm going to take them at their word for now.
What do you mean that they never took any of their ideas?
Basically, the guys, the creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender said they actually, even though they said they would have a lot of input on the live action movie that M. Night did, they never took any of their input and they were pretty much shut out creatively.
Oh, I see.
That's what they said. Now, M. Night says otherwise, but let's take them at face value for now and say, okay, that's fine. Are we to assume that Netflix doesn't know what they're doing when it comes to creating live action television. Let's look at that for a second. Netflix, in the world of creating live action shows, they've done a couple of modest little successes. Shows like Stranger Things, Dark, Daredevil, The Crown, House of Cards, Narcos, Mindhunter, Umbrella Academy, Bloodline, Punisher, The Witcher, Ozark, Black Mirror, Orange is the New Black, Glow, Peaky Blinders, Haunting on Hill House, and I've only put up 1/3 of them. The first point I want to make here is simply this. Netflix, with maybe only the exception being HBO. Maybe HBO's the exception on this. I'll give that. But take HBO out of it for a second. Nobody knows how to make better and identify what makes good live action television, I would argue, as good as Netflix. Again, I'm putting HBO aside for a second. Aside from HBO, nobody knows what makes good live action and can identify what will work in a live action environment like Netflix does. You want to look at a resume? Look at that resume. That's a pretty impressive resume. So you've got to forgive me if a little bit of a dispute breaks out between, let's say, Avatar creators and their track record with live action series. 0. None. They have no experience making live action stuff other than their executive producer stuff on the Avatar live action movie, but they say they had nothing to do with that. Fine. So if you've got to forgive me, if creative differences arise between a network that has done Daredevil and House of Cards and Peaky Blinders and Haunting on House Hill and Mindhunters and Narcos and all that stuff, if creative differences arise about a live action series between a company that has that resume versus guys who have never done anything live action, I know, and again, I know this is the unpopular thing to say, but I don't think it's the end of the world that the creators of the original show have departed. I know that sounds like sacrilege, but I really do trust Netflix, maybe not with their movies, but I do trust Netflix when it comes to making their original series. They just know what they're doing. And listen, all due respect, because I love the Avatar series, but hey, Katara, what you doing down there? You can do that in animated, and that works great. That don't play live action. And listen, let me bring up somebody's name you might be surprised I'm going to bring up here. Let's bring up this name. Dave Filoni. Let's look at Dave Filoni for a second. Dave Filoni had nothing but an animated background. He knows Star Wars, but he has never done live action. And I don't think it's surprising that the 2 weakest episodes of Mandalorian were Dave Filoni's. But here's the difference between Dave Filoni and the Avatar creators. It's attitude. And this is what's going to make Dave Filoni not a good live action director. This is what's going to make Dave Filoni a great live action director eventually. When you watch the Mandalorian making of documentary on Disney Plus, and you saw Dave Filoni on set, what did Dave Filoni say? This is his attitude. Dave Filoni, did he say, I've made lots of Star Wars animated stuff. I know Star Wars. We're going to go with what I want to do and my vision. That's not what Dave Filoni said. What Dave Filoni said is, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing here. I have never done live. I have no idea. Oh, thank God. This is what Dave Filoni said. I've got John Favreau here to mentor me. I have never heard, very rarely, from any creative executive, words that impressed me as much as Dave Filoni. With his background in Lucasfilm, he could have sat there, I know Star Wars as good as anybody on this planet. We're going to do it. No, what did he say? He goes, he literally said the words, I have no idea what I'm doing. This is live. I've never done this. Thank God I've got John Favreau here to mentor me. That tells me a guy like that, he's going to be awesome because of attitude. He recognized that I know Star Wars, but I need somebody here to guide me. I need somebody here to set an example for me. I need somebody here who can I can follow their lead a bit here so I can learn this element of it. And I'm not going to lie to you. I kind of wish that the guys behind Avatar would have taken that same approach. I would have liked to hear them say, yeah, we're the showrunners, but you know what? gosh, we've never really done this sort of thing before. And we've got Netflix here, maybe arguably the most successful company in the world at putting out great live action series. We're the showrunners, but we're going to follow their lead here, and we're going to learn a lot doing it. I kind of wish that was the case. Anyway, am I bagging on the Avatar creators? Not at all. I mean, listen, they had a vision. If they didn't feel they could do what they wanted to do and they would rather walk away, great. More power to them. There's nothing wrong with that. Do I think that this project is now doomed because they're not there? No, I don't. The show is still there. The original animated series is there. Netflix, they laid out the blueprint. The creators laid out the blueprint. Here's the blueprint. And now Netflix, who knows how to make live action stuff, can follow that blueprint. If the world was in balance, Aaron, would I rather Netflix be making this series with the creators of the original show? Absolutely. But I don't, honestly, and I know this is not what people want to hear, I just don't think when you look at the facts, I don't think this is a deal breaker. I don't think them deciding to depart breaks this project. I think it's a blow. I think it's unfortunate, and I wish it could have worked out. But I am no less looking forward to this project under the guidance of Netflix, because when it comes to their series, they just know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, Aaron, you know, you never want to hear about the creators of something departing the project, but
right.
I mean, you hear something like this. What's your interpretation of this? And have you ever had an experience like this working on a project where somebody like really pivotal to it had to walk? Or I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this whole project?
You know, it's interesting. I usually err on the side of the creator. I've worked obviously on broadcast and in not obviously. I don't know why I said that. I've worked in broadcast with like traditional networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, and I've also worked on projects in cable. And you know, and I've always become friends with the showrunners. And for those of you out there who are not familiar with the term showrunner really means the head writer, and the person who is ultimately in charge of the data, just everything. There are directors that are hired to do the episodes, but ultimately the buck stops with the showrunner, and the showrunner controls the writer's room, and ultimately the story and the direction that the project is going to go. And I usually err on the side of the creatives, because specifically in those in network world, there are a lot of people who get paid to have opinions, and they need to feel like they're earning their paycheck. So on a notes call, they will just give a note that means absolutely nothing and makes absolutely no sense, but they feel like they need to say, oh, I have something to say. And that often doesn't happen as much in the world of cable, or at least it didn't used to. I spoke to one showrunner friend of mine who said, I love working with blank cable network, because they don't get in my face as much as working with one of the traditional broadcast networks. They let creatives be creatives, and they sit behind their desks in their suits, and they know their place. That was also 10 years ago. We are now in the streaming wars, where Netflix and Apple and Amazon, they have much more power from the creative perspective. And so I feel like this is a combination of two things. In one sense, the way to be a good leader is not necessarily to say everyone needs to listen to me and I have all the best ideas and everything that I say is the way that we should do it. A really good leader is someone that says, you know what, I don't have all the answers, I don't have all the ideas, but I have surrounded myself with a team of people that can make up for anything that I don't know. And I can go to this person who's an expert, and that person who really knows what they're doing, and this person who's got great ideas. So there seems to be a disconnect here in maybe even the hiring process of Netflix going into business with these creators, and not giving them full creative control. Clearly, there was some sort of disconnect maybe from the very beginning. Maybe Netflix thought that these creators were better prepared than they actually were. That's a possibility. Or maybe the creators were under the impression that Netflix was going to be completely hands off and let them do whatever they wanted. That is obviously not the case. Netflix clearly has a much more collaborative process with their shows, which may be one of the reasons why they do have such a strong track record. But for them to go 2 years into this and then have creative differences, that's really, it's kind of shocking to me. I when I work on a television show, I'm very clear. I can tell within the first 5 minutes what the experience is going to be like with a director. If a director comes in and they are immediately giving respect and value to the people around them and saying, hey man, I'm here, this is my first episode on this show, or hey, I've never worked, if they're willing to have some humility, and give credit where credit is due, then I go, oh, this is going to be a great experience, because this is a director that's not afraid to ask questions, is not afraid to give someone else credit for something, and is not going to dig his or her heels into the sand in order to be right. I don't know what exactly happened in this situation, but I do feel confident that Netflix has enough experience in live action to find the right people to bring this to life. I think that it is a great missed opportunity for these creatives to really go into the world of live action, because other networks and other streaming platforms are going to see this and go, wow, you guys were given a shot at having your own live action show and you couldn't just make it work. Sometimes, unfortunately, as creatives, we also became way too precious with our babies. And this might be an example of them, instead of being able to say, hey, you know what? There's going to be a lot of things that we're going to have to make concessions on, because as you said, things that work in the world of animation do not always translate to the world of live action.
Not directly, at any rate. Yeah.
Right. And, being so close to it, they might have been almost too close to it in a way where they felt like, no, this is our baby. You can't hold my baby. You might drop my baby. You might break my, that kind of attitude, I think, is not necessarily conducive to a collaborative process, which if Netflix was planning on being collaborative and the creators were planning on being hands-off, then that right there is just a recipe for disaster and is ultimately not going to work out. But I feel like it is a missed opportunity, unfortunately for them, because Netflix is going to continue doing, Netflix is going to Netflix.
Yeah, they're going to
Netflix is going to be fine. But they might be, their ceiling might be limited now of what they can do creatively.
And it all depends, right? Like, look, for all we know, Netflix came to them and said, you know what the kiddies like? Kiddies like hip hop rappers. Let's say Aang is a hip hop rapper. Yeah. You're good. The kiddies will love it. The kiddies love it. And meanwhile, the Avatar creators are saying, "What the holy f are you talking about?" Yeah, trust us. We're gonna give him this really funky looking hat, and he's gonna be a rapper on the corner, and that's gonna be one of his bending powers. And like, for all we know, maybe Netflix.
Sure, this is all speculation.
Yeah, it's all maybe Netflix went to them with some really absurd idea, right? What I suspect is Netflix let them develop and then saw something and then kind of came to them and said, again, this is just me speculating. Guys, trust us. What you're kind of doing right here is not going to work with live action. And maybe sensing that pushback, they then decided, you know what? We're going to walk away. I mean, again, listen, I respect people who feel like if they're in a working situation that does not work for them, instead of causing a fuss and instead of making trouble or just saying, you know what, this isn't the right environment for us to work together, so we're gonna move on from this. I respect that. I think that's great. But again, maybe it was Netflix who had some preposterous idea. Maybe it was Netflix coming to the guys and saying, guys, you don't understand kind of what you're doing here and here. Take our word for it. This will not translate well to an audience in a live action environment. And maybe they just came to a loghead. And
I mean, look at Patty Jenkins not directing Thor.
Yes.
At the time, everybody was like, what are you doing?
Yep.
That's crazy. These guys might turn around and have the next bona fide hit of live action on their
Patty Jenkins already had Monster under her belt and had some Academy Award things.
Yes.
There was that. But
that's true. Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like this is something that remains to be seen. I hope, I agree with you. When you hear creative differences, that doesn't bode well for a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
It'll be curious to see if they do end up doing any work with Netflix in the future. Netflix is clearly one of the big power players in the industry right now. Not someone, I mean, I have a friend that's on a Netflix show who has specifically said, well, I would do this, but my relationship with Netflix is very valuable to me. So these are strategic decisions for the long term as well. It'll be interesting, and it'll be interesting to see so Netflix has the rights to this project, right?
yes.
And see, that's another thing, is for them to just, it would be one thing if they said, no, we're going to take our toys and go somewhere else. That would be different. But for them to say, no, we're just leaving we're just going to give you our baby and we don't even care and we're walking away, and they're not walking away to do something else. I don't.
Here's the other thing. We just talked about the highest paid people right now. Out of the top 10 highest paid people, a quarter of the money paid out to those people
Is from Netflix.
It just came from Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere. So and here's my other thing. I would have said to them, if they had called me in the middle of the night saying, John, we're struggling with Netflix right now. They want us to do this and we don't. Here's what I would say. I would have said to them, as long as it wasn't Netflix trying to do something preposterous.
Right.
I would say to them, you know what, guys, here's the thing. Stay on the project and influence it as much as you can. Bring as much influence to it as you can, because I think it'll be better having you there. I think the final end product will be better having you there. And maybe Netflix is right about a couple of things you wanted to do may not translate to the big screen, may not translate to live action the way it would in animation. Maybe you're still thinking in terms of animation. Be more like Dave Filoni. Have the attitude of, hey, I've got a lot to learn here. Let's learn from the best. And Netflix is kind of the best at this right now. And
look at the big picture.
I think it's unfortunate. I really wanted to see this live action with them being involved. But again,
because Netflix is going to go and they're going to pay to get the best.
Yeah, they're going to go and get somebody
They're not
else.
going to go and get some schmuck who is just like, oh, I guess I'll do this live action. No, they're going to pay to get somebody.
Great. I'll bet you it's going to be great, because when you look at their shows, for the most part, 90% of the time, not their movies. Death Note, anybody? But not their movies. But I think they're going to do this show and it's going to end up being great. I think it's going to be. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think? I think it's an unfortunate situation, but I do not think this dooms the live action series idea. I think it can still actually end up being really good. Maybe you do think it's a lost cause at this point. What do you guys think about this whole thing? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys.